Okay, Conor O'Keefe, the legend. How is everything?
Very well, thank you, mate. Even better for being here to chat with you. Nice to see you. How's things? How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm actually on vacation now,
Nice.
uh, but I traveled back to my hometown Stavanger
hmm
to train with a goalkeeper coach that I really trust and that I enjoy working with because yeah, you might notice that I had a bad injury after
hmm
coming to Gothenburg. So
mm
now I'm like really at the end of that rehab, so I can like push 95% now in goalkeeper training. So it's like,
Nice.
to know this feeling, when you come back
Yeah.
from injury
This is
and you
always
get,
the most tense bit, isn't it? Like right at the end where you're almost biting at the bit to get everything and go for it full, but then a kind of a professional like yourself, it's important in that last phase to do everything right, not push it too hard too soon. But it is a hard balance. But it's exciting because you know that you're nearly there.
I know, and you take these small steps mentally as well because you have to, you have to get over the edge like in small stuff in small increments in terms of pushing speed and
Yeah.
just trusting the part of your body that's been injured. And now I remember I made a save to my left today and I went 100%. So I'm glad that the physios in Gothenburg didn't see it. uh,
But sometimes you need that for your head as well. When you're in that
yeah,
last bit, you need that 100% push or that 100% contact to then be like, right, okay, yeah, I'm there. I can feel it.
yeah, for sure. And I think that's a good sign that I'm getting really close
Yeah.
when my mind just allows me to and allows the body to just be free
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
just go for it. So
Yeah. 100%.
yeah. Have you had any bad injuries yourself during your career?
Touch wood, nothing really bad. Like nothing terrible. Like
What's the
every
longest time you've been out? Like,
I've been out. My worst one in terms of time, I actually timed it really well. So I managed like the last couple of months of the season, I was really struggling. It was in my stomach. It wasn't a hernia, but it almost felt like a hernia in my stomach.
mm,
And I missed the last game of the season. I'd got all the way through, and I'd probably for about 10 games I was struggling. But by the last game of the season, I couldn't even pass a ball with the inside of my foot 5 meters. Just so much pain every time I kicked the ball. I couldn't, when I was in bed, I couldn't sit up. I couldn't, like, if I sneezed, it was agony, like right in my
mm,
stomach. And as I say, I managed to time it pretty much perfectly. We got through the season, did what we needed to do. I missed that last game because I just literally couldn't do it. And then it probably took me 2, 3 months during the kind of off season and pre-season to get over it and build it back to full strength. So I was lucky that that didn't happen in the season because it probably would have been about 3 months. But I managed to force myself through to the end, which probably isn't always the best idea. But as you know, when you're playing and you're playing for 3 points and you're playing for either titles or safety or whatever, you sometimes need to push through it.
yeah, for sure. And I think that's a really good trait to have as well, that
Mm.
you can play and perform having pain and having a body that's not operating at its full potential. But
Mm.
you also know and you can rely on that. Yes, you can have some pain during training, but with some painkillers and the added adrenaline, which is a beautiful thing
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you play, you can sort of get through games that way.
Yeah, we've all been there where you're almost in the build up to the game, you're thinking, how am I going to get through this? But then once you get into the warm up, get into the match, like you say, you've got that beautiful adrenaline helping you through it. You feel like you can get through everything, and then you come off and it drops like this, and suddenly you feel it all again, and you're thinking, absolute killer. But yeah, like you say, it's something that you have to do, especially when it becomes your job and it's a profession. It's something that you have to do sometimes.
Yeah. What about that period when you were injured? You come back for preseason, maybe some practice game starts. What have you found being the most difficult stuff about not being out on the grass with the rest of the team?
Yeah, I think a little bit like we touched on before. I think being patient with yourself and almost not expecting yourself to be where you were before the injury or the time off or whatever it is. Taking those kind of little wins as you get them, those little gains, those little improvements that you see, and using them as fuel, I think is important. But I think the main thing that you miss is obviously competing, training, laughing with your teammates, making big saves, those things that you almost take for granted when you're playing and training all the time. Those are the things that when they're not there anymore, you suddenly think, oh man, I miss them so much. So they're the carrot at the end of the road to get you back.
Yeah, for sure. I told that to my photographer today, because I have a guy helping me this week,
Nice.
just making loads of content, and I told him that life is so easy when you're not injured. As a footballer, as a goalkeeper, you know, it's like a breeze. You know, you show up to training, you train, you have a laugh, you feel tired afterwards, and then you just go and it's like rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
But when you're injured, there's so much other stuff that you have to deal with. That's it drains you. It drains you of energy.
And there's a great phrase in England where we say like health is wealth, and it's in life in general. Like you take it for granted, and then you have something that impacts your health or impacts what you can do, and you realize how important it is. And then I think it's multiplied even more when you're an athlete, because like you say, it's your day-to-day work, and when it's taken away and you can't do it, it's so difficult mentally as well as physically. But I think the thing that it's made me realize is when you are fit and when you are healthy, how important it is to do those little bits that you probably might ignore, but actually those are the things that in the long term really help you to prevent injury. So to sleep that extra hour each night, or to do that cool down, or to go and see your osteopath or physio once a month or once every 2 weeks or something. The things that, and again, especially when you're not at a top level earning huge money, things which might be expensive, but that investment in your health and your body is so important, because when you do get an injury, sometimes you can't help it, of course. But if you do get an injury and you think, actually, maybe I could have prevented that with stretching or training properly in the gym or eating better or sleeping better, you're almost more disappointed in yourself that you've let it happen. So I think the thing that's key is, whilst you are fit, whilst you are able, don't take it for granted. Do those little bits to help that to be as long as it can possibly be.
Yeah, I think that it's great points that you bring up there, because I've been thinking so much on, and I know that I could have done something differently the past 10 months, because I've had like two muscle injuries, and like you can't blame anything or everything on age. You know, I'm 34, but still okay. But then also I have to think, if I have to, you know, be really vigilant of my body. If I feel really, really sore from training hard the day before, okay, maybe I should go inside 10 minutes before the boys that are 18, 19, you know, just those small little things that you don't want to do it, but sometimes you maybe have to, because you're not 18, 19 anymore, and like this like just this body full of testosterone just flowing through your body. So, but also how do I eat, how do I sleep, and what else can I do to recover, you know? So it's interesting. Even though if you're young, there's stuff you can do. At the older age, you have to, there's stuff that you need to maybe adjust, do a bit more of, do a bit less of. So it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. So tell me about your year this year. You played for Macclesfield.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. It's been a really weird year. Like a really, I think you have some of these years as a goalkeeper. I think, well, for me, it's probably been 18 months, really. I mean, we've been in touch for a long time. We've chatted for ages, and I just want to say how pleased I am with how everything's been going for you. Like with the channels, with the move, to see the success you're having is massive, because when it happens to someone that deserves it, it's something which is really good to see. And I remember those kind of first conversations we had when you were thinking about starting Goalie on Adventure and stuff like that. And to see where you've taken it has been unbelievable. So first of all,
thank you.
Again, thank you for having me on, but it's brilliant to actually chat more in depth like this for the podcast.
Thank you, Conor. Thank you.
No, but for me, the last 18 months, it's been tough. I was playing in Sweden, as you remember, when we first kind of connected and we were chatting and playing for a team called Piteå and loving it, playing every week. We were successful. We were doing really well. And then through a kind of series of events that are always happen in football, the subsequent kind of 2 teams I've played for, I've not had as many games as I would have wanted and kind of would have expected. This past season at Macclesfield is the town that I grew up in. So it's the town that I moved here when I was 4 years old, and Macclesfield were always a big club. They were always in kind of like the Football League, doing well, playing in the FA Cup. I was in like the academy setup as a kid. So I used to play for the academy teams and go and watch the first team. And whilst I was in Sweden, the club unfortunately went into liquidation. So they ran out of money. A part of the problem, which is quite common here in the UK, you see big clubs who aren't run well for whatever reason, they go bust. And Macclesfield, unfortunately, was one of them. And it was a massive club for that to happen to. And through the work of some brilliant people, they kind of brought the club back together again, started again. But obviously that meant they had to start from a much lower level and work their way up. So whilst I was in Sweden, they were kind of winning the leagues and progressing back through. And I had the opportunity. They kind of got in touch. I would train with them whenever I was home from Sweden. And they kind of spoke and said, would you be interested in coming and playing? And in the beginning, it was perfect. Came back to my hometown, back to my family, playing all the time, playing kind of week in, week out, enjoying it, playing well. And then a couple of bad results, a change of management team. And then I didn't really play for the second half of the season, which was difficult. But I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it. Obviously, as a goalkeeper, you have those seasons. And it asks a lot of questions of you that you have to find within yourself and answer. So interesting, lots of lessons, but a great experience to kind of play for my hometown team properly. That was something which I loved.
But digging a bit deeper into that then, what's been going through your mind then, not having so many games as you would like? What questions are you asking yourself, and what kind of inner dialogue do you have with yourself during this period?
I think you go through stages. I'm sure if you were to kind of break it down and analyze it, there would be a theme and a pattern amongst all of us that have been in that position. I think for me personally, when it first happens, I almost feel, and I wouldn't want to feel it, but I almost feel a sense of, you're almost angry, you're almost kind of upset. I think it's different if you can see why. If you've been performing poorly, or if you see the cause of the effect, then you could probably understand it a bit better. But for me, I felt like I was playing well and I was performing well. So then to be out the team, you almost have that initial emotional reaction, that kind of chimp in the brain reaction, which is to blame everyone else, get frustrated, feel sorry for yourself, kind of mope around a little bit. And for those of us that want to be better as athletes, I'm sure we'll have studied that and we try and suppress that and move on from it, but it still happens, and you still find yourself in that moment. I think the important thing for me was to really try hard to identify the things I could control and the things that I could control in terms of my behaviors, how I trained, how I acted, and to do those to the best of my ability. And you get through to that point and you think, right, okay, I'll set myself a plan. These are going to be my small goals. I'll go speak to the manager, for example. I'll try and find a way that I can direct myself in a positive direction to get back to where you want to be. And you do that for a couple of months and you still don't get in the team. So then you might go back in the same thing again, and you've gone, I've done all that work, I've done all the right thing, I've focused, and you start feeling sorry for yourself again. But what you realize is there might still be things outside of your control which prevent you from getting the outcome that you want. And as much as I'd love to say those positive actions will get you to where you want to go, sometimes they don't in football. And you kind of have to go, right, okay, take it, assess it. And for me, it came to the end of the season and I could see that it wasn't going to change. So it was about, right, maybe it's time to move on to do something else, to find a different situation. But as long as you can look back and go, I feel like I behaved in the right way, I worked in the right way, I set the right targets, gave my all to the things I could control, then I don't think after that you can have any regrets.
No, for sure not. And sometimes football it can be like a shitty business. It can be up to, it's such like football is opinions and a different eye that view you differently than the former coach or former management, former staff. And suddenly, because it could also have been the other way around, that you were not playing at the start at Macclesfield, and then the new management came in and they saw, no, I would like Conor to play, because it's just the way maybe that coach views the goalkeeper position, or the way he views you. So sometimes there's just nothing you can do.
No.
But I think all the things and the points that you bring up, if you do that consecutively over a long period of time, it will only be a period of time that you are out of not playing for a team and not getting game time.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important when you have tough times and you have it difficult, that you still keep doing the work, because if you don't keep doing the work, then you will not get that break that you deserve, if it's in a 1 month's time or in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that the stuff that you talk about, that you just keep doing that stuff.
Yeah, like you say, opinions. And what you realize is it's not necessarily just the opinion of the manager. I think you grow up thinking, okay, it's the manager's decision and what he says goes. And then you go into these clubs and you realize there's so many other factors. There are so many other people. There are so many other decision makers involved. So it might be out of the manager's hands, for example. It might not be down to him. And that's sometimes something that you realize, you go, actually, on the football side, it might all be there. So it is really difficult. But I think, like you say, when you reflect I'm not going to call us old, but as an older player, when you get to kind of my age, your age, you go, actually, I can look back over the previous 10 years and I can see that those behaviors, like you say, had added to a general upwards trajectory. We might have little dips in the road, but if those behaviors are there over 1 season, 2 seasons, 5 seasons, 10 seasons, you're progressing in those directions. I think the hard bit is for the younger players when you're 16, 17, 18, and you don't have that body of work to look back on. And you might put in all the work and you might not have the season that you wanted. It's hard for them because they go, well, I've done everything right. Why has it been a tough year? But they've only got 1 or 2 years to look on. Whereas when you get to our age, you look back and say, yeah, it can happen. Even if you're doing all the right things, it can happen, but it'll still mean that you're moving in the right direction.
For sure. And probably many of those younger goalkeepers are probably listening now. And what's really important also to understand is that you might feel that the football world is really big, but I feel that it's small. People talk. You never know. Coaches, players, sports directors that is crossing paths and talking to each other, whether it's working again together or speaking at games, at camps or whatever. So, and then if you have a good resume of how you behave in training, the kind of character you are, the way you are in the dressing room, and what you provide when you play and when you don't play, then you will always be an asset and also always be talked well about. And this can may well give you another contract somewhere else.
100%.
So behaving well and working hard is like such good traits to have, even though stuff might not go your way.
Yeah, it's so valuable. It's so valuable. And it's, again, when you're younger, it's so easy to think, I just want to lose my temper or kick off or sulk or moan. And sometimes you even see players doing that. And in the short term, they might actually get the result that they want. We've all been in the dressing room where there'd be a player with a big ego who, for whatever reason, is left out the team. He'll throw his toys out the pram, have a tiz. The next day, he might get back in and you think, how is that allowed to happen? But like you say, over time, it then becomes very well known within football how you behave, what you're like as a person, whether you're professional. So for me, talking to teams this summer for the next one, every single team I've spoken to have all referenced people that they've gone and spoken about me. And they've all come back with the same message. And that's the reward that I am now experiencing from the behavior that you try to put in, week out. Whereas if, like you say, if you'd been that younger player who go, right, well, I'm just going to behave badly because they did it and they got what they wanted. Yeah. You're not going to build that long career throughout the game because you're not going to get the opportunities.
For sure. And it's also the way I think when I'm a bit like I'm an older player, and there might be, down the line, let's say I will not be a starter for a team in, say, 4 years' time, 5 years' time.
Yeah.
But the dressing room, the club needs a reliable guy that can in some way work as a mentor, coach.
Yeah.
For the goalkeeper union that's already there. It's a young team. You come in there with your presence, with your professionalism, the way you conduct yourself, the way you are with other people. And then that might earn me a year or two more in the game, doing what I love.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, you see so many of them now. There's a reason why Scott Carson keeps getting year after year at Manchester City. There's a reason why Tom Heaton is wanted by Manchester United. There's a reason why these guys are at the very, very top clubs at the top of the game. And their behaviors have been like that for 20, 25 years. Since they were kids, youth team players. Yeah. James Milner, if you look at outfield players, it's exactly the same. So you see that longevity, and it's not, like you say, it's not just down to the performance on the pitch, it's what they bring off the pitch as well.
Yeah, for sure. If we go a bit back in time and your time in Sweden, I'm a bit curious, like coming from Britain and then moving over to Sweden to play. What lessons have you drawn from your time in Sweden, like a professional and all, but also like a human being? Because there's lots of different obstacles and challenges when you move countries.
First of all, I love Sweden. I love the people. I love the environment. I really enjoyed the football as well. I'd spent some time playing abroad before I went to Sweden. So I played in Spain, for example. But I actually found that the kind of Swedish culture was much closer to what I was used to back at home in terms of, I wouldn't say a UK culture. I'd say a kind of Northern England almost culture, or a Northern UK culture, because it's very family oriented. It's very close. The clubs worked like that, especially Piteå when I was there. The kind of Scandinavian way of life I really enjoyed. And those are the things, like you say, that you don't always think about when you move in for football. You think about the teams, you think about the style of play, you think about the league. And then as a byproduct of that, when you play abroad, you suddenly get exposed to all these other aspects. You get exposed to the language, you get exposed to the culture, you make friends. And we were there for 3 years, and it was probably the most enjoyable part of my career so far. I absolutely loved it. And I never got the opportunity to play in Norway, for example, but I know that there was a lot of similarities with that. So that part of the world, I was very lucky to get the opportunity to play there.
And because you were also, you were named Ettan Goalkeeper of the Year while you played for Piteå.
Yeah, so I was the first season I came, it was during the COVID year. So it was 2020. So I'd been in Spain, I was playing in Gibraltar. The season got cancelled in the March time of 2020. So everything was going into lockdown. I came back to the UK just before the UK lockdown. And I almost went into a Rocky Balboa training mode during lockdown. So April, May, June, those kind of 3 months, I'd written out a full training plan for myself. I was doing 2-3 sessions a day, in the garden, kind of weights in the garden outside, and all this kind of stuff, and absolutely going for it, because I was thinking, I was really excited by the opportunity because for me, it was the first time that goalkeepers from the top to the bottom, we were all in the same situation. So I was imagining David De Gea at home. I live close to Manchester. So I was thinking he's probably less than 10 miles away from me. And he's in exactly the same situation as I am. So in my head, I was like, right, I'm going to outwork David De Gea. I'm going to outwork all these Premier League goalies that are at home. So I was absolutely gunning for it. And at the same time, I was thinking, it's all right, me doing all this training, but I need to find a team. England was locked down. There was no football going on in the UK. Spain, where I'd played before, is exactly the same. But I saw that Sweden, in general, had a different kind of public health model. They didn't have a lockdown, for example. And there was kind of, obviously, debate in society about that. But I saw that the football, as a result, was carrying on. So I basically got on the phone to everyone I knew in football that had any connection with Sweden whatsoever and was saying, do you know any teams? Do you know any managers? And eventually one lad got back and said, oh, my agent has a few players over there. So I spoke with him and he said, oh, there's a team called Piteå. Their goalie's broken his wrist. Do you fancy it? And I was like, yeah, definitely. So I jumped on a Zoom call like this with the sporting director, had a great chat. He said, yeah, we'd like you to come, agreed everything, signed all the documents over email. And then only after that did I actually look up on the map where Piteå is. And like I put it into Google Maps and it just went north, 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 north. I didn't realize it was a town that was right at the very top of Sweden. So it's only about 2 hours south from the Arctic Circle, small town, only about 40,000 people. And me and Frankie kind of looked at each other like, what have we done here? Where are we going? But we went over in that summer and there were only 11 games left of the league. And we won 9 of them, kept 8 clean sheets or something, won the league, got promoted. I won Goalkeeper of the Year for the whole division in all of Sweden, went up to Ettan. And that point of my career was exactly like we were saying before, those behaviors, I was loving it. I'd done all that training. And when I was there, I was really going for it every session, every game, and everything was coming and paying off. Every game was a clean sheet. And I remember looking at Frankie after every game. I was thinking, this is easy. Like, I couldn't believe it was playing a goal. I was like, this is amazing. Like, everything's going right. And it was just one of those seasons and one of those clubs where everything just clicked. So we had a brilliant time and obviously stayed for 2 more seasons after that, playing in Ettan. We were favourites to go down that first season. We ended up in the top half. I came second in the Goalkeeper of the Year again. And it was just like that. It was almost like I'd built up that energy through that kind of Rocky Balboa training mode. And then as soon as someone gave me a team, it was like, boom, gone. Absolutely flying. So yeah, it was a great period.
It's a good story.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a bit curious, Conor. What's inside you? What's inside you that makes you like just go right away, moving away from home and going to Piteå, a place far north, and playing football in Sweden? What's inside you that makes you just go for it and go and do that? Because there's many footballers, goalkeepers that say they want to chase the dream, but sometimes there's also work that needs doing. So I'm a bit curious, what kind of traits do you have that makes you want to do that?
I've always been very single-minded on what I want to do. And my mum tells a story, like when I was trying to walk, she'd be sitting on the sofa and I'd be using her legs to try and like stand up to help me to walk. And if she even stood up from the sofa to go and get a cup of tea or to go to the toilet, I would scream the house down until she sat down again so that I could use her legs to try and stand up. And she tells that story because she says that just shows that when you want to do something, it's all you're going to try and do. And I was quite late to actually wanting to be a player. I wanted to be a goalkeeper. I was, like I said, I was in this academy, but I never really grew up thinking I'm going to be a footballer. I was just kept in. So every time there was like a review of the academy, like which kids would stay, which kids wouldn't, I was kept in and kept in and kept in. So it almost got to 16 and I was still there. And I was thinking, I could do all right here. it got to 18 and I got kept in with the first team, and I was training with the first team. And I was like, yeah, this is it. Like, I can do this. I'm all right. And then that year, my first year as a kind of quote unquote professional full time, I did the bare minimum. So I would turn up when I was supposed to turn up. I would leave as soon as we were finished. And I just expected it to carry on the way it always had done, that I would always be kept on. And it got to the end of that year and I got released. I got told, we don't need you anymore. And that was almost like a big slap in the face. I was thinking, oh, wow, like I've had this opportunity and I haven't done anything with it. Like I did what I was supposed to do. I wasn't bad, but I wasn't doing anything extra. I wasn't training extra. I wasn't in the gym extra. I wasn't looking at what I was eating or anything like that. And that was almost a wake-up call when I was 18, 19 to go, actually, if you want to do it, there's a lot more that you've got to be able to do. And there's a lot more that you've got to learn. And from almost that point, I kind of told myself, right, I'm going to get back in that position. And this time when I'm in that position, I'm not going to let it go. I'm going to give absolutely everything. So yeah, fast forward to that Swedish thing. For me, I was 24 at that point. I'd been playing football abroad. I was enjoying that pathway and I didn't want it to stop. I wasn't going to let it go. So I chased that opportunity of the new place to go and the new place to play. And that turned out to be Piteå. If it had been somewhere in Japan or South Africa, I probably would have done exactly the same. Because I was in that mode of, yeah, this is what I'm doing, and that I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna let it stop. And obviously that changes as you go through your life. There's different periods in your life where you have different priorities. Everyone does. But for me at that point and still now, performing and playing to the best of my ability and giving it everything that I've got was really important to me and still is.
I think there's so much learning that the listeners can draw from your story.
Mm.
Because I think that with social media, YouTube, TikTok, and when you see people succeeding all the time and not seeing the other side of the coin, I think it's important for them to listen to stories like yourself, because there will be lonely nights when the rain is pounding the window. It's dark outside. It's November.
Yeah.
And you've had maybe a bad training, a bad game, and you're sitting there wondering, am I going to make it?
Yeah.
And like yourself, have that resilience, be open to just go for it, and know that, adversity, it's a huge part of making it in the game.
Yeah, and I mean, there's loads to that. There's for resilience. It's a muscle like anything else that we train. The more you work it, the more resilient you become. And as goalkeepers, we get really good at being resilient. It's part of what we have to do, because we face so much adversity, we face so much challenge. So that's one part of it. I think the second part of it is, like, the more I've realized is what is making it. Like, making it is so different for so many people. I always just wanted to be a professional footballer. I was always told I couldn't be a professional footballer because I was too small. I'd never make it as a professional goalkeeper. So from that point, I had a chip on my shoulder. And for a long time, it was all about proving people wrong. It was always about, I'm doing this because I want to show them. And as I've got a bit older, a bit more mature, I've realized that making it for me changes all the time. I've been able to travel the world, meet different people, make friends like yourself through football. Like, I spent 5-6 years living in different countries, learning different languages, playing for different teams. I was so rich by doing that, not necessarily in a monetary term. I wasn't paid more than David De Gea, but I earned so much, and I was so wealthy as a result from all the other things I experienced. And for me, that was making it. And again, it changes different parts of your career, different parts of your life. But knowing what your goal is and why you're doing it and working towards it and enjoying that process of doing it is as much making it as playing in the Champions League.
Yeah, for sure. You don't need, like, I think that's a really good point. Like making it in football, it doesn't have to be arriving at a training ground at Carrington in a Bentley and wearing a £50,000 watch on your wrist. Like that's not what it's all about. It's about pushing yourself and try to reach the highest performance and capabilities that you have inside of you. And if that's reaching yourself playing abroad, playing for Macclesfield, or if it's here in Norway playing Obos-ligaen or second division or whatever, and making a living out of that, doing something that you love, then that's making it. It doesn't have to be Champions League, winning Ballon d'Or, winning the Golden Glove and stuff. It doesn't have to.
No, it doesn't. And the best thing is it changes. So if you're in the right mindset, where we were kids, you're probably thinking, if I was paid to play football, wow, what a life. And then you get that first paycheck for playing football and you're thinking, that's unbelievable. And then your next thought is like, right, imagine if I could play in the league above. And then you're chasing that down for a bit. Or imagine if I could be the number one, like I'm the number 3 at 18. Imagine if I could be the number 1. And then you become the number 1 and you think, that was brilliant. And then you have 10 seconds and you're like, imagine if I was the best goalie in the league. And then you're chasing down that next thing. So that's also something which I think is cool. Like, making it is different levels at different times. But once you have made it and hit that goal, you feel that brief sense of satisfaction, but then the hunger comes back twice as much for the next thing that you want to do. And then you start chasing after that thing. And it can be tiring for yourself and for everyone around you. But actually enjoying that chase and enjoying that pursuit is a huge part of being an athlete.
Yeah, and I think, and I've actually learned the lesson going back to my last summer where I didn't perform where I wanted to.
Yeah.
I think subconsciously I got a bit comfortable because I got a new contract. My family was happy.
Yeah.
Children went to school. There was good money, and I think, and at that point there was nothing next.
Yeah.
I was 33 years of age. I played in Belgium for many years. Like, that's like, I think I felt that subconsciously that where's the next adventure? Where's the next goal?
Yeah.
And that's a lesson I've learned now at 34, and that there always have to be something that you're chasing, because if not, you stagnate. Your performances drop. Maybe you get an injury, new goalkeeper coming in, and then suddenly your world is turned upside down.
Yeah, completely.
So I've also drawn a huge lesson from that, and the stuff that you're saying, that you have to enjoy the process, and like, I know it can be tiring to always have goals and always never be happy. But I think when you're in a competitive environment and in a competitive business, you just have to enjoy that and enjoy that process, and you just have to be friends with that. That's just how it is.
Yeah, completely agree. And that's why it's not for everyone. And that's why not everyone can do it, because it is part of it, and it's not natural, it's not normal. It does take something a little bit different to be able to deal with that and use it.
Yeah. Technically, how did you work at a younger age to develop that the basics of goalkeeping, to have this plateau to work on in the future? Is there anyone special that helped you along the way? Tell me a bit how it was at a younger age.
Yeah, I had a few. I mean, when I was younger, I think I grew up in a bit of a goalkeeping family, which was quite cool. So my granddad was a goalkeeper when he was younger. His cousin was a professional goalkeeper that played for Man City and the Republic of Ireland. And so I kind of came into a bit of a family that had a bit of a theme. And my granddad's cousin was a guy called Ron Healy, and he was running a goalkeeper school with his son, Scott Healy, in Manchester when I was growing up. So I think I first started going to train with them when I was probably about 10 years old. And they were kind of the first ones that I had that were kind of goalkeeper coaches that I could learn from and could teach me. And I still go and train with Scott now. So 18, nearly 19 years later, we still train together and he still coaches me. And that's something which I find really special, is that he's been there with me kind of through my whole goalkeeping career. Along that way, obviously, I've had lots of great goalkeeper coaches from different clubs that I've been at. But Scott and his dad Ron were probably the first ones to teach me that kind of basics. And we used to train on like a little park in Sale, not too far from Carrington, the Man United training ground. And but it definitely doesn't look like Carrington. It's literally like a park in at the back of a housing estate. And he'd put us through some brutal training sessions in the summer, and even through the winter, it'd be smashing it down with snow, like puddles, whatever. But he'd always be out training, and we'd always be going and training with him. And if we weren't there for a week or two, he'd be on the phone like, "Why you get back training again?" And I learned that kind of discipline and love for the position from them. And yeah, we still train on that park to this day in the off season. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
There's a lot of there's a lot of frustration, especially younger goalkeepers that are not as fortunate of being maybe in an academy or in a pretty professional clubs where there's funds to pay a goalkeeper coach. Also, I receive messages from parents that they don't know about goalkeeping. It's such a niche, and it's so difficult to support your child.
Yes.
And you so desperately want that. So when we talk about that, talk a little bit about keeping goals, the camp that you've had this summer, and the challenges that the game face of bringing up new talent, and not, I think, especially not losing talent because they don't feel seen and taken care of. So talk a little bit about what you think.
Yeah, I think that's one of the. It is still a problem, but I think that's one of the amazing things about right now. I think if we go back to when I was a kid, when you were a kid, I used to have, I remember getting like a Simon Smith DVD. Simon Smith used to be the goalie coach at Newcastle.
Yes, I have this as well. I don't have it here. Yeah, I have it at home. Yes, I have it.
I remember getting that DVD when I was like, I think I went on one of his goalie schools when I was really young. And so he was coaching Shay Given and Steve Harper and those guys.
And he had sessions with them.
Yeah, he had sessions with them on the DVD. And that was like, I remember watching that like again and again and again. And even things like Match of the Day, which is so famous here, you'd sometimes get like the Save of the Month compilations, or you'd get a couple of saves in the game, but it wasn't really the goalies. Obviously, it was all the goals. But if there was a save, I remember I'd be watching that all the time. And you'd have to catch it at the right time on the telly. Like you might be able to record it on like a VHS tape if you wanted to, or something like that. Like it was, you had to work a lot harder to kind of get that visual in front of you. And then you compare that now to like the stuff on YouTube, the stuff on social media, like there's so much goalkeeping stuff out there now. And you can literally spend 20 minutes. England put one up today from their camp. Like you're watching Jordan Pickford and Ramsdale and Trafford and all these lads training, lads who are at the top level of the game, and you're watching all the drills, you're listening to the goalie coach, and you just think, God, if I'd have had that when I was a kid, like the amount of times I watched that DVD over and over again, nearly burnt a hole in it. Whereas this one, there's new stuff every other day, and you're thinking it's unbelievable. So I think the amazing thing now is there's so much access to it. The second part of it being, I think it's created a really strong community online in terms of goalkeepers. So we were always the odd ones out. We were always the ones on the team that had to wear a different colour kit, and everyone thought we were a little bit weird and didn't quite understand why we did what we did. Yeah. And we were always kind of, like you say, our parents probably didn't even know why we were doing it. Whereas now you only have to log on to kind of Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and you can find this community of thousands of goalkeepers all over the world that are willing to kind of share ideas and chat and talk things through. And suddenly you've got creators like yourself, like me, who are putting things on. And I think that's been amazing that you could help to create that kind of community online, because it is a lonely position. It is a difficult position. And if you feel like you're on your own, it makes it a lot tougher. But if you've got people to share it with and ask questions from and learn from, then that's amazing. And yeah, we loved doing that training day for the first time. That's the first time we've had like stuff in person to actually meet people and train together and work together, which I've wanted to do for a long time. But obviously being abroad, it's been difficult to do. So now to actually do that in person is great. But yeah, I've loved doing the channel. I've loved making the videos, and hopefully it's helped people, because that's always been the main aim of it.
Yeah, they for sure have, for sure. My son have also loved your videos.
Nice.
He watches everything.
That's amazing.
So yeah, he because he's a goalkeeper in football, but also in ice hockey.
Oh, amazing.
So he's also watching a Finnish guy that plays in the AHL in America. So he watches him as well for hockey, and he's been watching you, myself, and others for football.
That's
so
fantastic.
For sure, yes, so for sure it helps kids around the world to, I think, see that there's other ones that is also loving goalkeeping, and people celebrating and talking well about the position. I think is extremely important, because I don't want to sound like that I can't take a joke, or that like we as goalkeepers should be put on this pedestal stuff. But there's been throughout the years when I was growing up and I was younger, like it was also like a thing, always a thing of making a fool out of the goalkeeper whenever you could, and that's been annoying the shit out of me for a long time. It's like also a couple of years ago, I just lost it in training in Salzburg, because the goalkeeper coach has put on a session, and we are training, and suddenly they come sprinting, the outfield players, because the strength and conditioning coach said they had to do sprints, and they don't care if they sprint in the middle of the goalkeeper session. I just completely lost it,
Yeah.
So like the respect of the goalkeeper position has to be up here, because I'm going on a rant now, because it's so important. It's so important.
Yeah.
It's the most important position on the field.
Yeah.
You have to be a communicator, leader, good with your feet, claim the cross, make saves, one-on-ones. Mentally, you have to be the strongest. You have to deal with abuse when the game is on the other side. There's so much stuff. It's so complicated. It's so tough to handle, and to do it well. So we have to talk the position up.
Yeah, we do.
Not keep it down.
I think, there's two things. I think the great thing is, you're right, and there's more and more people who are kind of starting to do that, and it's starting to become a bit more mainstream. But the second thing that I like to say is, I always spin it. I think, if you notice, I think they're all getting a little bit jealous now. Like, you look at the outfield players, like they all feel like they could do it a bit. Like, they kind of start going, oh yeah, what about that? Could I have a go? Could I try it out? And they all, like you say, they might make a joke. They'll be like, oh, the goalie's doing this. I always spin it. I'm like, listen, you boys aren't invited. You're not allowed. It's not. It's a no entry club for you lads. You can't join in as much as you want to join in. You're not allowed. And that'll always kill them a little bit, because in their heads they're like, oh, God, they're having a better time than us. They're always having more fun. They're always enjoying it more. So I think that goalie union, especially within a team, is massive. You protect that, and you look after each other. And any kind of disrespect or any slight from whoever, doesn't matter who, you kind of draw the wagons round and don't let them in.
Yeah, for sure. And it's such a beautiful thing with the goalkeepers union. Like, now I'm training at Bryne, which is the club of Erling Haaland.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah, so actually, I was his captain when he was 15.
Oh,
so
wow.
I have that under my belt, that I was the captain
impressive.
of Erling Haaland.
Did you think he'd be this good when he was 15?
To be honest, he had, like, I can't remember how many sessions he had with the first team then, but it wasn't too many because he was really young. But at that time, I didn't hear about that, and I don't think so. Only thing I heard was that his mentality was
different.
Like in his mind, there was like no chance that he was not going to become a professional. So
Yeah.
but that's a fun fact that I was captain of the club when he started to come on for a few sessions.
That's cool.
So I have that under my belt. But what I was going to say is that like it's a Swedish goalkeeper that's there now, whose name is Anton, and it's Igor, and it's a young guy called Sam. And when you come there, you feel that you've known them for a long time.
Yeah.
They are welcoming.
Yeah.
They push you in training. They are supportive. They are we are like exchanging opinions and to learn and develop. So like the goalkeepers union is such a beautiful thing.
And I had a question on our training day the other day. One of the younger kids asked, like, I think they said, how do you find it when you're kind of both competing for number one? Like, do you ever fall out? Is it ever awkward? Is it ever upset? And it almost caught me off guard because I was thinking back and go, actually, I can never really remember it being the case. And it's something, if you're not a goalkeeper, people find that hard to understand. But it has happened occasionally, very occasionally, but in the vast amount of situations, in a position where you do have to be competitive, only one of you is going to play. Actually, the vast majority of times you get on really well and you really look after each other, and it's a really supportive environment for you all to work in, which people, I think, on the outside wouldn't expect it to be, but 9 times out of 10 it is. So it's a credit to the kind of goalies, because I think we all understand everyone's situation. We've all been a number 3, a number 2, a number 1 that competing for a place, and we kind of understand that there's a lot of it that isn't in our control. And whatever the decision of the coach or the club, you look after each other and you help each other to improve and to train and to work hard. And whoever plays, you try and help each other to do the best job possible, which I think is a credit to the vast majority of those goalkeeper kind of unions that I've been in.
Yeah, for sure. And I learned so much when I spoke to Quinton Westberg, the Atlanta goalkeeper in the MLS. When I had him on the podcast, he is like so, how do I say this in English? He's so reflected about, like, if he was the number 1, like, be the best number 1. If you're the number 2, be the best number 2 that you can be. If you're the number 3, be the best number 3 that you can be, and make your environment better. I think that's such a good thing. Whenever what position you're in your career, just try to make the most out of what you have at any given time.
Definitely.
And I think it's such good advice, because football and goalkeeping, it's complicated, and it's not always that it goes the way you want. And that's also what I feel is important, is for the younger audience as well, to know that it's not all about side volleys and top corner saves and having tennis balls in training and all that sort of stuff. There's so much else that you also have to know, and skills that you need as a human to make it in the game.
And that's a key point, I think, when you talk about the stuff online, because I think as brilliant as it is, there are so much kind of goalkeeper creators and so much goalkeeping content out there. It's so important that as a young goalkeeper, if this is what you want to do, there is a time and a place for the showy stuff, but you need to expose yourself to that reality, the real value of what it's like to play week in, week out, those lessons that you have to learn, those things that you have to do, which aren't necessarily always shiny and sparkly and amazing on camera. There's a lot of it which is difficult, but I think that's then our responsibility as people that put content out to make sure that it is as honest, it is as transparent, it is as realistic as it possibly can be, to give that next generation of goalkeepers as much value as we can, so that they can move forward and they can take it to another level. Yeah.
And I think that it's important that there is such creators out there as well. Let me see. 1 second. Just have to check if my internet was okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah, I think. It's important that there is creators like ourselves out there, because I think it can also be really difficult for parents and younger goalkeepers to navigate this landscape now. Because one thing, it's really, really good that there's so much content out there, but there's also content that is maybe not as good.
Yeah.
So it's also important that you have, like yourself, having camps and having instructional videos explaining, yes, there's a drill, but this is also the reason why you do the drill. And like, the relevance of goalkeeping. So
Definitely.
yeah, I think that's also a challenge going forward, that for those who want to develop, they also have to know what's good content and what is not good content for them to develop.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it only comes with learning, doesn't it, and exposing it to it. But I think it's a fun balance. It's a new challenge in this kind of new era of having content everywhere and everywhere.
Yeah. So it's summertime. What's your plan for the future? Is there any decision made on where you'll be playing going forward? Tell me a bit about your plans for the next few months.
So yeah, off season now. A busy off season for us because we're getting married at the end of June. So
congrats.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of kind of planning and getting everything ready, and I think
amazing.
It's exciting, and I think it's quite funny because my social media feed, I suddenly see all these footballers getting married in like the space of 4 weeks because this is the off season and the only chance that you get the opportunity to get married. So I think as we get older, especially here in the UK, I think all my football friends will all have our anniversaries in the same like 4 week period.
Yeah.
So that's been nice. But yeah, so pre-season will start again in July. I think I'm probably going to be UK based again next season. It was almost this coming season was kind of, I'd been back in the UK, playing in the UK again, and I almost the choice was between, right, do I go back abroad again? Do I go back to Sweden or somewhere else and do something like that? Or do I want to kind of have a crack at it here in the UK and give it a run and give it a go? And I've pretty much got something sorted for next season here in England. So I'm quite excited about that. I spent probably 5 years away. And I always wanted to use that time to learn, to grow, to play, to build my CV, to build my experience, to build my quality, with the idea of one day bringing it back to England and bringing it back to the UK and giving it a good go and seeing how high I could get here in England. So it feels like a good time to slot into that kind of decision making. And of course, you never know in football, you never know what's going to happen. But I feel kind of a lot of learning that I've taken over the last season, but not just the last season, probably the last 2-3 seasons. And I feel right now's a good time to find that place that wants me for the goalkeeper that I am, and give it absolutely everything I've got, and see where that run could take me, can take us. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm excited by that.
Cool. How do you take care of yourself training wise during off season?
I had about 10 days completely off. Didn't do anything. Didn't train at all. And it was probably more for me mentally this year. I think I've had seasons where I've been physically exhausted, like we spoke about with the injury at the beginning. But this year, because I didn't have so many games, it wasn't so much that physically I wanted that break. It was almost mentally, it had been such a tough year that to have kind of a week, 10 days, 2 weeks where you just completely disengage from it, cut yourself off and let yourself do other things that you enjoy. That was really important to me. And then probably for the last 3 weeks, I've been building myself back into it. And I really enjoy this period. I find this is the time that you'll be the same. Like in the off season, you don't have the games. You're not under that pressure of making sure that you're physically prepped and primed for a Saturday or a Tuesday, but you've got a full run of 6 weeks or something to go, right, this is the time where I can really work on my weaknesses, work on things that I want to be better at, but also really push myself in terms of my strength and my physical capability. So I've been really kind of dialed into that. And it's always a lot of like heavy lifting in off season, like really trying to build that power and strength. So that when it comes to the season time, you'll still do that work, but obviously you can't do as much as you can do during the off season. So kind of physically, technically, mentally, I've been like almost, this is my growth period now. I can really dive into it, which is quite exciting.
Yeah. So it's a perfect mixer. You have working hard, and then you have the Euros during the day or in the evening, like coming up now in a short period of time. So
exactly.
How do you see the Euros going? And who do you look forward to see playing? Like maybe teams, but also goalies. You know, it's also such a good time to watch and study goalies.
I love it. It's amazing, isn't it? Like every day there's like 2, 3, 4 games on, and you're thinking, oh, I'd love to watch him play. I'd love to watch them play. I think it's almost a bit nerve wracking for England, I think, at the minute, because we're so good and we've got so many good players that it's almost like is win or bust, which I think is quite tough for us because in general, we probably like a little bit being that kind of underdog, thinking, oh yeah, we could do something. But you look at the England team now and you think, wow, like best player in Germany, Kane, best player in Spain, Bellingham, best player in England, Foden. And you're thinking that is some team. So I think they'll be amazing to watch. I think it'll be really tough. If I had to bet whether they'd win it or not, I'd probably go no, but just because of all the years of it being a frustrating disappointment, it'd be amazing if they did. But in terms of goalies, I think it'll be really cool is Mike Magnon fit for France? I hope he is, because if he can play.
I'm only going by Instagram photos here, but I've seen him with gloves. Doing handshakes with the other goalkeepers.
With his teammate, I saw that today.
Yes, so I think he might be fit.
Yeah, so I saw that today. I figured, that'd be great for him to go because I love watching him play. And I mean, Lloris has been the French goalie for so long. To see Magnon have a go at it would be amazing. I love Ter Stegen, but just Manuel Neuer is just an absolute animal. So you know he's going to play every game, and I always enjoy watching him play as well. And then for me, a massive one, I love Sommer for Switzerland. Like watching Sommer play is just a joy for me. And I mean, everyone knows now how good of a goalie he is. So, and especially for those of us that aren't huge, massive goalkeepers, he's a big inspiration. So he's always performing well. And like the last Euros, they had a great run. I think they knocked France out, was it? So yeah, he's a top goalie. So I look forward to watching all of them.
Yeah, and it's like now I think it's a big surprise, but because what's happened the last week that Courtois is not there for Belgium. Mm-hmm. You know, I know he's been out for a long time, but now he's played a couple of league games. Yeah, and he played the Champions League final. So not seeing him for Belgium is a bit. That's a big loss for them, I think.
Yeah, and it's a surprise because, I mean, I don't know, and there's nothing that I can add on the topic, but I would be surprised if there wasn't something else there, because if there's even a hint of Courtois being fit and available, you want him there. And
yeah, you want him there.
On a side note, how incredible that you can be out for 10 months and you can turn up in a Champions League final and be like, yeah, it's fine, whatever, no problem. Like that's just the epitome of what we're talking about, that kind of mental strength and confidence and belief in yourself that, yeah, it doesn't matter. I've only played 2 games or something before it. I'll go out and keep a clean sheet and win the Champions League final. Yeah, no bother. Yeah, it just shows what level he's at. Incredible.
It's so impressive. It's impressive, like, abilities-wise as a goalkeeper, like technically, but also the mindset and the mentality of the guy is just unbelievable. So yeah, like such huge respect for him doing that. You know, going in there and just performing that way.
And for the young goalies, I don't think we could go, oh, that was a world-class moment that no one else can do. I don't think there's anything we can pick out from that performance that we go, that's extraterrestrial. But what we are lauding and celebrating is you watch that game and you wouldn't have any idea that he was playing in a Champions League final, a game in the park, that he'd been injured for 10 months. He was just so clean, calm, everything on the button, just no worries, no stress. And like we were saying before, it's not all top corner saves and side volleys. For those that are in the know and that play the position, that is just as, if not even more, incredible to see that someone can perform at that level. So for those young goalies watching it, you go, yeah, mental application and performance of just the basics is world class.
Yeah, unbelievable. I have a question that I normally should start the podcast with, but it's sometimes I remember, sometimes I forget. So if you could bring, you're arranging a dinner party and you can bring 3 goalkeepers, past or present, who will you bring, and what do you think the topic of the conversation would be that night?
Great question. I'd bring my first goalkeeping idol that I loved was Tim Howard when he played for Man United. Bit of a strange choice, but when I was growing up, I just loved him. I thought he was amazing, and I was only a young kid. I remember going to Old Trafford to the mega store at Old Trafford, and I got a goalie shirt, and I got them to print Howard on the back, number 14. And number 14 has been my favourite number ever since. And I remember coming home and I put the shirt on and I was so excited. And I ran upstairs to my mum and dad's room because they had this tall mirror. And I turned around and I looked in the back and I just started crying. And I ran downstairs and I said, Mum, they've printed it on back to front. It's the wrong way round. And she was like, take it off, you idiot. So I took it off and looked, and it was absolutely fine because obviously I was looking in the mirror and it was spun the wrong way around. Yeah. So I'd invite Tim Howard and I'd tell him that story. I'd invite Iker Casillas because I love watching him play. I loved the fact that he was just kind of, like I say, not the tallest goalkeeper, 5'11" or something crazy, but world goalkeeper of the year, however many years, however many Champions Leagues. I could practice my Spanish, my limited Spanish, and we could maybe have a little bit of a conversation. So I'd have Howard, I'd have Casillas, and then finally, I'd probably have Neuer. Not necessarily because I've always loved watching him, but he's never been like my goalie that I adore watching. But for someone to almost completely change the position and then have the consistency to stay at the top of the game for 20 odd years or however long he's been playing, you think that is something special. So I'd have, my first goalie love, one of the greats of the past, and then probably one of the all-time greats as well. So I think it'd be a pretty cool dinner party. And then we'd probably chat about, I don't know, we'd probably have a chat about goalkeeping, and then we'd have a little bit of a chat about all the games they played against Man United. We'll go with that.
What would you serve them then to eat?
We'd have 3 courses because they'd all want something different. So we'd go with we'd have a little paella for Casillas, just a little starter with paella. We'd have, I don't know, what the Americans want. We'd have a pizza or some burgers for Tim Howard, and then we'd let Manuel have some of his steins of beer. He could have some of them as well.
Amazing. You giving me compliments for my content yourself. You're one of the OGs. Your content is amazing. It's honest, and I really enjoy watching it. Tell us, you also have a your goalkeeper training programs. So just let the audience know where they can find you, so that we can get all the good stuff that you have out to the most people that we can.
Thank you, mate. No, that means a lot coming from you. I appreciate it. So YouTube's the main place. That's the main place I kind of put out my content, and it's just my name. So Conor O'Keefe. If you search that, you should be able to find me. And yeah, we do a bit of everything on there. We do kind of goalkeeping tutorials, but we also kind of document my own career. We have done for the last 7 or 8 seasons, from being in Spain to Gibraltar to Sweden to England. I kind of document, like you say, I try and make it as honest as I possibly can, and show the great games, the not so great games, the great seasons, the not so great seasons. And we try and learn as much as we can through every year. So that's been really fun to have people come along for such a long period of time and follow me on my career to different places. Like, we've also got the tutorials on there, hopefully in as many different aspects of goalkeeping. So if there's something that people find difficult or something they want to learn from, we've tried to make as many videos as we can for free for people, where they can learn from what I've learned from top goalie coaches and other people in the game. And then we added the training programs as a kind of another level, really, for people that maybe have watched the videos or have done as much as they can on the free stuff, but they want a little bit more guidance, a little bit more help on specific areas of goalkeeping. We've got kind of a gym program for goalkeepers. We've got a nutrition guide for goalkeepers. We've got like a distribution training program, a plyometrics training program. I've just done my first kind of holistic one, which is like an off-season program. So we were speaking a little bit about off-season before. This is the program that I'm following in my off-season to kind of cover all my technical training, physical training, mental training. And then there's a free one as well, which is a communication guide for goalkeepers. If anyone needs help with what to say, when to talk, how to talk to your defenders, how to organize things, which I found is a kind of overlooked area of the game. So we kind of made that one free, so as many people want to try it as they can. And then, the final thing is those training days. We've done our first one this year, which was really cool in Loughborough. And then hopefully next year we can have quite a few different training dates in different locations and get as many goalies on them as we possibly can. And depending on where you are and what you're doing, we'll have to come and see you at some point, because it'll be fun for us to do some videos in person as well, because there's a lot that I know my audience can learn from you as well.
Amazing, Conor. It's been a brilliant chat. I love talking to you. So thank you for coming on, and I wish you all the best on your new adventures and the stuff that's coming in the future, and with the wedding and
Thank
everything.
You,
so I wish you all the best. Enjoy the summer, and then for sure we will do this again sometime.
100%. Best of luck with the comeback in the second half of the season. I'll be keeping an eye on it. But we'll link up soon. And thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.